How did Cleopatra or Marilyn Monroe, even Coco de Chanel, captivate the masses without being naturally born beautiful? How do you even begin to demystify the genius behind someone like Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein, or even John Coltrane? What's up? My name's Cody P, and this is the Author Authority. I'm helping you find your authenticity. In today's video, we are reviewing my top 5 favorite books by my favorite author, Robert Greene. And I'll be also telling you which order you should read them in if you're looking to get into heavy-duty books like these or are just getting started yourself. Thanks so much for tuning in. No further ado, let's get into it. Okay, this deserves a bit of a disclaimer. Robert Greene is my favorite author. I've read each of these 100 times, mostly in audio form actually, but I've got the paperbacks as well.
His genius was his ability to respond to circumstances, to make the most of what he was given. He was the supreme opportunist.
They are pretty much the secret weapon, my friend. Anytime I feel slighted, I know what to refer to. Anytime I'm not sure if a new bit of information I have learned is relevant, I will bounce it off of Robert Greene to see if it holds true, because I consider these books to be Bibles in their own right, of an amoral regard. These are the underlying laws that humans do not like to talk about. These are things that people avoid. And it is because the level of truth behind them touches a raw nerve about the way that people act. Any type of power dynamic is covered here. Any type of way to master a skill or to seduce people. All of the laws of human nature are covered in these 5 books by Robert Greene. And it is no easy task to rank them. It's like picking which one of your children is your favorite. Gosh, number 5, my 5th favorite Robert Greene book. This is the least essential of Robert Greene's books, I would say, although it's an amazing complement at any point in your life, The 33 Strategies of War. And so the reason that I put this book at number 5 instead of as my favorite Robert Greene book, this book is essentially the manual on sleight of hand and when you need it. You can find most of this information in The Art of War by Sun Tzu, but these are slightly more modern versions. A lot of these are actual war examples, and Robert Greene breaks down how the general outsmarted the other side and led his troops to victory in the end, usually by means of deception. In warfare, you can't just go all out and attack. That's going to get you killed hard. You have to find ways to maneuver and deceive. Robert Greene has done an excellent boiling down of The Art of War, and then kind of expanding on it in a bit more of a modern sense and applying it to business, education, skill mastery, and deceiving those around you in order to come out with the best ultimate outcome for your side of a fight or argument. So boom, 33 Strategies of War. We're hopping right into the brutal stuff here. I think it's an excellent complement at any time in your life. So, you know, whenever you're feeling like you're defeated or somebody's slighting you or attacking you, pick up the 33 Strategies of War, and it is guaranteed to guide you where you need to go. My number 4 recommendation from Robert Greene is The Laws of Human Nature. Now, I do already have a review on this one. It's actually my kind of beginning impressions when I had first started the book, but they were pretty accurate. So I would go ahead and go back and check that one out if you want a full review. The Laws of Human Nature, the reason I recommend it at number 4 is because it kind of ties together all of Robert Greene's books. And in fact, it almost goes in the opposite direction. The Art of Seduction and the 33 Strategies of War are basically handbooks of deceit, whereas The Laws of Human Nature kind of reverses that and shows you how you can be deceiving yourself and kind of shows you how to stop bullshitting yourself in a lot of ways. The final chapter, for example, is mortality. We're all gonna die. What finer example is there of a motivation? The fact that you're not gonna live forever, you're gonna wanna make something that does last forever. So it talks about confirmation bias and how we tend to believe what we want to believe or what we already think is true, when really the truth will set you free, and we're not always keeping an eye out for it. So number 4 recommendation, The Laws of Human Nature, does a great job of tying everything together. I'd consider it maybe the last Robert Greene book you should read, because it's an antithesis in a lot of ways to the other books, and it can help you finalize a lot of these concepts and re-hammer them in. Nothing you don't learn from the other books. If I were to recommend one Robert Greene book that's heavy, but you can still get into it, Laws of Human Nature is pretty applicable. It's probably his most politically correct book. You're not gonna hurt a whole lot of people's feelings by reading The Laws of Human Nature. You're just gonna have to take a long, hard look in the mirror. So I do recommend that book very, very highly. Again, Robert Greene's my favorite author. It was tough to put that one at number 4, but I had to. Book number 3, recommendation, Mastery by Robert Greene. If there was only one Robert Greene book on the planet, if all of his other work went to waste and we were left with one, I would keep Mastery. And the reason that I would keep Mastery above all of his other books, even though it's not my number 1 recommendation, is because it's kind of all encompassing. So The Laws of Human Nature is very introspective, and it will help you eliminate a lot of your own flaws. It's essentially like it's self-help. It's like brutal self-help. Mastery is genuinely what will give you the mind state to become the greatest in the world at a craft. It'll help you find your purpose as a person. It'll help you get along with your coworkers and build a team and find a mentor that will help you raise to the top. Mastery gives you the keys to be able to focus, and it begins the book with how humans evolved in nature and why we think the way that we do, and so that we can master this machine of the human body that we're born into. Even though it's not my favorite Robert Greene book, I just think it is the one. If anybody were to pick one book by Robert Greene, this is it. It will bring you to the heights of what it is to be a human being. I think any person who wants to be a genuine master at their craft, if they're not busy doing everything that's mentioned in this book, they ought to be reading this book and strategizing what they're gonna do. Mastery by Robert Greene is my number 3 pick that you have to read. My number 2 pick for Robert Greene recommendations is The 48 Laws of Power. And look how worn this is. I left it in my car for a long time so I could skim through it. Again, more that I've read on audio. If you listen to audiobooks in like 1.5 times, for me it's a lot more, I like the sound of his voice better. It's a little bit better paced.
So that he can hear everyone's doings. To Cardinal Grassi, who had a reputation for lechery, the elephant bequeathed the appropriate, oversized part of his own.
But these books are dense, man. You do not want to rush through them. They are worth several reads through. And The 48 Laws of Power. Now, this book bears no expense when it comes to being amoral, even borderline immoral. But I love the preface of the book. Same with my number 1 pick, is that if people tell you not to use the 48 Laws of Power, if they say that you are evil because you are manipulative and that you are learning brutal things about human psychology, they're gonna call you a liar, they're gonna call you a misogynist, they're gonna call you any name in the book. And that's their way of controlling you. It is outlined in this book, the way that people will behave in order to get you not to read this type of stuff. Now, I do recommend keeping with your own code of ethics. So maybe even write down what's important to you and what you will refuse to soil, because everything is off. It's no man's land. And when it comes to 48 Laws of Power, we are animals in this world and we are still in nature. Animals eat each other and we are no different, other than the fact that we know that we are divine. But that's another argument in and of itself. If nothing else, the 48 Laws of Power are very, very valuable to know for when they're being used against you, because make no mistakes about it. While the world is beautiful and I believe in the good of mankind, evil does exist. You're gonna need to know how to deal with it. Being a rabbit and being prey is not synonymous with virtue. You're simply harmless. To quote Jordan Peterson, to be a monster, to be able to rule supreme and still choose virtue is to wield your sword and sheathe it. So the 48 Laws of Power, you know, honestly, I need to put more effort into this one, and I think that the text version of this book is particularly valuable because of how well everything is lined out. It's a beautiful book even to read it. I think it's a little bit too bright here, but I mean, these books are works of art. These little red, like the red transcripts along the side are usually scripts from poems or famous people who quote things that show a card in their hand of the 48 Laws of Power. So easily my number 2 recommendation, 48 Laws of Power. It's his number 1 selling book, number 1 searched book. And for good reason. It will get you through the corporate world. It will get you through Hollywood, any kind of field that you are in. Power dynamics are at play. It doesn't mean that they're the ultimate goal, power, not necessarily, but they are at play. And if you are ignorant to them, you're simply ignorant to them. All right, I'm just rambling. On to my number 1 pick. My number 1 favorite Robert Greene book is also the book that I started with in reading Robert Greene. You'll notice that cats do it when you hang out with cats, or if you've ever been like in love with somebody but didn't know why. Maybe they were quiet or even not all that pretty when you look back on it, but you were just completely encapsulated by them. Oh man, this book hit me so deeply when I found it, and it kind of kicked off my entire journey into self-help and reading books in general. This book is beautiful. It's got examples from history. It's got examples from literature that are fictional characters who essentially hold truth in the real world. And yeah, it's my favorite book of all time. I just love it. Even if it's supremely amoral, even if it's brutal, it will pry your eyes open. I recommend starting with this book so you can get a brutal ass kicking into what the world is really like, but in such a beautiful way. You'll recognize it everywhere. I had fallen under the spell of so many young girls when I was in high school, and I didn't know why. I didn't know how to get over it. The Art of Seduction. Man, the introduction that I've given this book doesn't even do it justice. It covers Marilyn Monroe, the different types of seducers, the rake, the masculine version of the rake of hell, who literally rakes the coals of hell and has bedroom eyes at all hours, a sexual being who cannot contain themselves. It talks about the feminine dandy, a female who dresses slightly androgynous, kind of in a male way. It makes them approachable. It makes them fun. You're not quite sure what to think of them. You might not be attracted to them at first, but you know, all of a sudden you can't take your mind off of them. Oh, the Art of Seduction. So it talks about all the seductive characters, types to be seduced. So like the type of victim, it's outlined as victims. Let's find it here. Victim theory. Like, yo, Robert Greene is fucking brutal. And I don't know. I think that's why nobody's reviewed these books yet, even though they are underground cults. So yeah, number 1 is choose the right victim. So after outlining all these character types, it then goes into strategies of how to seduce. And you know, I did put this into practical application in my world, and these things are crucially true. They are brutal, my friend, and it's nerve-wracking to put it out there that you even know these things. But they're being, everyone is out to seduce. Children, babies seduced by crying. It's how they get your attention when they're hungry or when they don't have enough food. People who claim to be the victim so that you will feel bad for them and give them what they want are seducing you. This is a law of power. people who tell you that you're amoral, who don't want you to listen. It's all forms of seduction. It's forms of power. And the difference between like seduction and general dating advice is that dating advice is how to work on yourself and how to really become who you are, and then be able to put that out there loudly, proudly, and fall in love, have sex, bring people home. The art of seduction is a lot more like the study of rats, where if they give them 3 consistent lever pulls, so rats pull levers for food, 3 consistent lever pulls, they'll just maintain a steady diet. They'll maintain discipline and control and routine. But the other types of rats who pull the lever once and they get food, or they'll pull it 17 times and they get food, they never know when they're going to get food, so they continuously pull on this lever, and that's how addiction works. You don't know when you'll get the outcome that you want, so you constantly keep pulling this lever to try and get it. That's seduction. It's when you can make people addicted to you and fall in love with you. And it's my #1 recommended book of Robert Greene. It's going to really pry your eyes open. You're going to learn a lot of things that you don't want to learn. But once you know them, once you know the rules, you can begin to break them. And actually, instead of communicating vaguely and making people guess what you want and fall in love with you that way, you can communicate clearly, give guidelines, and then have a healthy relationship. You can go the opposite of the art of seduction and actually have a healthy communicative relationship. So I want to get that across as well. You can be aware of seductive things and do their antithesis, not in a way to repel people, but in a way to have a clearly communicating relationship. Boom, those are my top 5 Robert Greene books. And then my number 6, bonus time, The 50th Law by Robert Greene and 50 Cent. This is how I got into Robert Greene, is because I was looking at workout books and I found that 50 Cent had workout books for people who were in a hurry, and then boom, he also did something called The 50th Law with Robert Greene. Interesting. So I watched some videos on that and I had my mind blown. It is business, it is relationships, but it's gangsta. It's get rich or die trying elaborated on, and it is the no bullshit gangster way of doing business. It talks about 50's days of selling crack and like how he would intimidate other gang members, and then how he worked his way through the ranks in the record industry in making music. And you can tell, because parts of it are poorly written, that it was genuinely written by 50 Cent. Some of the spots have terrible grammar, but it's still captivating. 50 Cent is a genius as well, and I'm so glad that he broke into this market, because it's what got me into Robert Greene. I would say it is maybe even Robert Greene's best idea that he ever had. It's so accessible compared to the behemoths of his other books. So bang, those are the top 5 Robert Greene books ranked, as well as a 6th bonus book. You know what? Thank you so much for tuning in. My name's Cody. Question of the day for you. What's your favorite Robert Greene book? Where would you recommend people start? And how did you get into this? I'm so glad that you have joined the channel here. I'd love it if you subscribe. This is my brand new beginning. So, yo, like-minded people, drop a comment in the community and let's get this started. Again, my name's Cody P. Thank you for tuning in, and boom, links down below if you want to buy any of these books. I am an affiliate, so that will help out this channel so much. If you want me to review any of these books in particular, drop a comment below and let me know what I should cover and why that would be worth it for you, and I can probably make a video of it as well. So, meme review. Demystify the genius behind Edward Darwin.